All right. Thank you for joining the Really One Stop Mastermind. Tonight, we are going to talk about a 40 unit that I just purchased in Laughlin, Ohio, just outside of the city of Cincinnati. It's a suburb. I would classify it as a D minus, or I'm sorry, D plus, C minus type of neighborhood, lower income. And we're going to share my screen here and get into some of the details on the deal itself. All right. So it's loading. Cool. Can you guys see that? All right. So, like I said, based in Laughlin, this building is 40 one-bedroom apartments. So every apartment's relatively similar layout. It's small one-bedroom apartments. So these are a little over 400 square feet. So I mean, it's pretty small. And when you walk in, there is a small living room, a galley kitchen that leads back to a bedroom, a decent sized bedroom, and then there's a bathroom off of the bedroom. So you have to walk through the bedroom to get into the bathroom. So not an ideal layout, but again, these are very small apartments, so not the end of the world. There's not a ton of entertaining space. There are balconies, as you can see here. Most of them are in pretty rough shape. And each building has two sets of laundry. So both are all three. There's three buildings on the property. Each building has two washers, two dryers. So plenty of laundry facilities on the property. There's a private parking lot. It's about half paved and half gravel. It's pretty rough condition. One of the items on the CapEx list. There is some storage in each unit, mostly used currently by the previous owner, where they were storing building materials and things like that for the property. The tenants only pay electricity at this property, so we are going to be paying the water, trash, and there's boiler heat. So there's a boiler in each building. And there's actually this interesting fiber optic based Wi-Fi for the entire village of Laughlin. So they actually, I guess, have it ran through all the utility poles. And it's like I don't really know exactly how it works, but it's supposed to provide everybody in the village an actual free Wi-Fi option. I think it was one of those government grants for low-income areas that came out a few years ago and tried to provide internet for anyone who may not have internet. So the tenants actually do have a free Wi-Fi option, but we've considered maybe doing a Wi-Fi provided, just like I did with my 28 units. So that's a potential option for the property. And if you guys have any questions at any point, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, hey, let me ask you one real quick, right? So when you are doing your underwriting, obviously, you're dealing with 40 units and you as a landlord are responsible for most of the utilities, right? How do you guesstimate that? I mean, what are
Yeah,
any
so in this
tips
in this
or
particular case, and this is what I would recommend on almost any purchase, especially larger purchases, you're going to want to get the actual numbers from the utility provider or from the seller. So you should be getting copies of utility bills. Now, if the tenant's paying almost all of them, less risk. But if it is something like you said, 40 units and you're paying for it, then I would highly recommend you get a actual copies or call the utility provider. Most of them, it's public record, and they'll provide an average for the property. Some utility providers I've found in the last few years have gotten more strict on privacy, um, but there's always a way to get it. And if the seller is not cooperating, then that's a red flag. That would tell me something's off.
right?
So here's some exterior photos on buildings 2 and 3, or 1 and 2. I'm sorry. So this is one of the buildings that was being demoed as we purchased it. So you can see all the stuff going on here, but this is the best picture I had, unfortunately, of the layout. It's, again, small living room up here. This is where the kitchen is. So you got cabinets on one side and very, basically a hallway. This closet we're going to be taking out because doesn't seem to be really utilized. So we're going to leave that square footage, but open it in case they want to use it for something else. Get rid of the doors and the shelves. And then back here's the bedroom. So here's the bedroom. Again, it's hard to tell, but these are about 14 wide by about 10 deep. So not a huge room. And you can see here the radiator running all the way along this room. on this side of the room here, and that goes all the way through. So it's continuous. And then there's another radiator here in the bathroom on this side. So here's where the tub goes, and this is kind of the vinyl insert the previous owner was using on these bathrooms. Here's just some more common area pictures. These are the old Federal Pacific panels that'll probably be updated at some point. So these are like these are the type of panels that most inspectors will tell you to replace. And here's one of the building's laundry units. And then this is one of the newer boilers. So one of the building has these tankless boilers that are high efficiency. And the middle building has a newer boiler, but the furthest building has a very old boiler. I think it's actually original. So I think this system here is about $12,000 for material and installation. So this is probably, what we would go to on the other buildings as they go out. So here's just some basics of the terms. So we agreed to a $1.45 million purchase price. That's the option price on the lease option. And that was the way we structured the sale, was through a lease option. We pay the current owner $9,666 in current rent. So that's basically like our quasi mortgage payment, but it is considered rent. We pay all the utilities, taxes, and insurance on the property. We have full control and responsibility. So we do all the maintenance, all the CapEx, collect all the rent. So basically, we do everything like you would on a normal ownership, but we do not take title until we execute the option and buy out the seller. So that's the way the lease option works here in Ohio. The way we structured it is we have a 36-month option to buy. So at any point during the next 36 months, we can execute the option. Or if both parties agree, we can extend we can basically continue it, change the terms, agree to something different. So the only reason that may happen is, let's say we get to a situation and in 3 or 2.5 years, we go to refinance this and we're having another 08, 09 type of lending environment where nobody's really lending. It's very difficult to get lenders on board to fund loans, and like nobody could get a loan for this, let's say. Well, then the seller knows that even if he doesn't give us our option to purchase, he's not really going to be able to take it to market and sell it unless he gets a cash buyer. Again, this is like a D+, C- type of neighborhood. Not going to be a whole lot of appetite for cash buyers, especially if you're in that type of market where you really can't sell property. So again, it would have to be a dynamic in the market where both sides just refuse to or want to agree to continue on because outside factors are forcing us to do that. So hopefully that makes sense. So the day we took over, and we actually took over on the 16th, but it went into effect today. But we executed the lease option on the 16th. The average rents on the day we took over were $580 a month. Market rents in that neighborhood on comparable apartments to the way we're making these is $725. What's interesting on this property, though, and how it's different than every other property I purchased up to this point is there are apartments that are in really poor condition that they're getting $650, $675 a month for. So even though we are going to update these and make them nicer than they are currently, there's not a whole lot of ceiling there to raise the rent $300-$400. Like, it's just, the market wouldn't support it. And unfortunately, the market doesn't really support a high-end level of finish either. So we're going to be doing very, very low-end finishes. I'll go through that in more detail, but different than every other type of property I purchased up to this point. Our pro forma on that current value is 1.68 million. So that is at today's NOI. I'll have to look at the cap rate here in a second on the pro forma, but we knew going in with our option price, we were going to have some day one equity. So that was one of the motivations for doing this deal, is we knew even at the price we're at on our option, we have quite a bit of equity. And it also motivates us to execute our option, because if we put a bunch of time and money and effort into this property and then we don't execute the option and we don't buy it, we lose everything we put into this. So knowing we have day one equity, obviously that motivates us more to execute that properly. We're very conservatively putting the ARV at 2.2 million. So that's where we think we'll be conservatively in the next 36 months. So some quick math here, even at 2.2 million, that's still 55,000 a door. That's still pretty conservative, even in Cincinnati. Right now, we're at 36K a door, which is obviously very low in the current market we're in.
Hey Joe, so once you execute that option, then at that point you would be looking at, in a way, refinance it, I guess, go get a loan and
Yeah,
execute the option.
yeah. So technically,
What,
it's a sale. So
right.
technically, it is a sale, but we're setting it up in a way where the goal here is to raise the value of this property a minimum of 25%. Because if we raise it 25%, then we can effectively refinance this. I'm calling it a refinance. It's technically not, but calling it a refinance, buy out the current owner that holds title and be into this for hopefully little to no money. Because even if we put in $100,000, $200,000 in CapEx, which is probably the case, the goal is to have that as self-funded as possible from the property. So my partner and I who bought this, we're not taking any capital out of the deal at all. So we're going to just keep building the reserve account as cash flow starts coming in. We're filling the vacancies we have now, and we're going to be doing renovations as they go vacant on the ones that really need them. But again, we're not planning on taking capital out of this deal. And the goal is to, well, we know going in, we're probably gonna have to put about 50 to 100K out of pocket. But if that ends up being a $2 million plus valuation, which is the goal, then we're into it for less than 5% down, right? Effectively. So that's the goal. So yeah, let me go to the pro forma here. Actually, I'll show you the rent roll first. So this is the rent roll day one. So you can see here we're collecting almost 22,000 a month in existing tenants. So that's the current rent roll. Pretty minimal deposits. I'll get into that later as to why that's the case. So there's three, one, two. No, actually, I'm sorry, that's not vacant. One, two, three vacancies currently. Yeah. And so those are the three we're already working on. This is the day we closed. This is the pro forma. So day one, and this is actually assuming we have a note, which we don't. So we're not paying any principal, right? Because we're paying rent. So effectively, if you want to look at it this way, we're paying an 8% interest rate, interest only. That's what our payment is. So 8% annual interest on 1.45 million is 9,666. Okay, so that's how we came up with that number. But if you want to look at it like that, it's an interest only note. We don't get any principal pay down, and the seller keeps all of that as regular income.
You don't get any of the tax benefits either, right?
No, so that's one of the downsides to a lease option for the buyer is we don't get any depreciation. We don't start the schedule. There's reasons why we set it up that way. I'll get into later, but that's one of the downsides. So this is based on a 7% interest, which is at the time similar to what we would have got from the bank. But even day one, this isn't accounting for CapEx or maintenance, but we still have 5,000 a month in positive cash flow, even with the average rents that we have here. So this is how we came up with that valuation. So we actually have this as a 9 cap, which is probably pretty conservative. It wouldn't shock me if that number was a little bit lower. But based on all of the income, all the expenses, the NOI is at 151, given the current portfolio. I'm sorry, given the current rent roll, and the market value is right around 1.668. So this is the projections after we're done. So this is assuming we don't refinance it, but this is basically what it'll look like before we refinance it. And this is only assuming we get our rents up to 700. So that's conservative. Our target's 725. I think that's pretty achievable. But this is assuming we put 150K in out of pocket. with all the current numbers. And that would bump up our cash flow closer to 9,000. The property also collects about 1,000 a month in coin laundry. So that's in there as well. And then again, with that $2.2 million ARV, we're looking to create about 600K in equity. And that's kind of the business plan with this. So total cash on cash, if this plays out the way we have it, 71% based on our 150K, CapEx budget. So something that's pretty interesting here. Let me actually do it on this sheet. So let's say we were able to get our 725 that we plan to get. So that would add another 118,000 or so in value. So, and that's again on a 9 cap, right? Let's say the market in 3 years is in where it was a couple years ago. Let's just say that happens, right? Interest rates go back down to 4 or 5%, and we get back down to that 7.5 cap range. I mean, that's, that alone adds another 400K in value if we get down to that compressed cap rate like where we were. Again, we're not underwriting for that. We don't need that to happen for this deal to make sense. But those are some of the if things go really, really good, numbers we could be looking at. This is our current cost that we've spent. I mean, this just shows kind of some of the things we're doing and working on. I had to put 1,000 down on the water deposit for the Village of Laughlin. We're switching our management system AppFolio. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But our first 3 apartments, all of our cosmetic material was about $8,000 for the 3 apartments. Rough material. This was mainly framing and drywall. The first couple apartments we had to fix had a lot of mold issues, so that we had a lot of extra rough materials there. But so far we're about 14,000 out of pocket, and again, a lot of that was CapEx stuff that we didn't necessarily plan to address right away, but we had to. Boiler, radiators, mold issues. And so our goal when we're heavily into the business plan is to be turning these units for about $6,000 or $7,000 a piece. So if we keep running into a lot of these unknown problems, then obviously that number is going to end up being higher. So some other details on this one. What's really interesting and cool about this property is almost half the units are rented out by a corporate backed lease through a Chinese food company called Eternal, based in Laughlin. So that's in walking distance to this property. So again, they are directly responsible and the lease payee for almost half the apartments. So that's really cool because it gives a lot of demand and stabilization to the property. They're there for the long term. They're expanding their factory. It's not like they're going anywhere, and they want more apartments. So our goal is to consolidate all of the Chinese employees into the big building, which is 17 apartments. That's kind of what they want. And it'll allow them to have more of that, communal feel, because right now they're kind of spread out throughout the property, and we're going to help them, kind of get consolidated into one building over time. One of the challenges with this property, as I just mentioned, is there is about half Spanish, the other 25%, or I'm sorry, half Chinese, the other 25% is Spanish, the other 25% is English speaking. So there's a lot of language issues. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but not enough to be fluent, and I don't speak any Chinese. So, when we went and posted all of our notices to explain we're taking over the property, we had to post in all 3 languages. So, that was a unique experience that I've never had to do. So we literally put a language specific notification on each door, and then we put up multiple language notifications on every common area door, just to make sure the tenants know who we are and what we're doing.
Hey, so Joe, let me ask you from a management standpoint, right? Because I know you self-manage. Now that you are adding these 40 units, right? Are you doing anything differently from a management standpoint?
Yep. So this puts me at about 125 doors. My partner, Tyler, on this building has some of his own. We're going to consolidate all of that into one management system under AppFolio. So right now I'm using apartments.com, Turbo Tenant, Google Forms, spreadsheets, a company phone program which we're going to keep, but I'm basically just showing you all the things that all the systems we have to use to operate our management. We also use we put all of our listings on multiple platforms. We do a lot of Facebook marketing for our properties. We do all of our bookkeeping through QuickBooks. So every property in my portfolio has its own book in QuickBooks. And the reason why I'm explaining all that is AppFolio will allow us to take almost all of that under one roof. So we're going to be able to do our management, our lease ups, our marketing, our maintenance request, our bookkeeping, our backgrounds, our screening. All of that stuff is going to be through the AppFolio portal, the AppFolio system. The other challenge with this property, the previous owner was collecting cash, checks, money orders on site. So he's actually going and collecting money every month, which is, in my opinion, a big no-no. Not something I would do and not an effective way to manage. Aside from the fact that it takes a lot of time, it also is dangerous, and you're setting yourself up for just bad things to happen. So the cool thing with AppFolio is our tenants are going to be able to pay with cash, check, and money order through various systems that talk to AppFolio. So they can go to 7-Elevens, Walgreens, Walmarts. There's different programs and different banks have different programs as well, where you can walk in, it takes your money like an ATM and will allow you to pay to a specific barcode you can scan or put in a barcode number, and it will send it to their rent. So we're going to basically issue them a card. They go to the system, they put their cash, check, or money order in, it sucks it up, and then it sends us a ACH transfer for their payment. So it allows our tenants, if they want to continue paying that way, to do that without us having to collect it in person. So it's safer. It's obviously trackable. They still have an online portfolio, or I'm sorry, an online account and access to the AppFolio system. So that's one of the big things we're implementing, and we're going to go live with that on December 1st. But I was very impressed with the AppFolio system and the demonstrations and all the onboarding stuff we're doing so far. The thing with AppFolio, though, is it's really meant for larger units, larger portfolios, because even at my size, it's just, it really, I'm right on the verge of it being economical and making sense. Now, some of the benefits of AppFolio are there's a lot of ways that we can actually charge our tenants and applicants services to help create revenue to offset our costs of the software. So that's one of the benefits. So for example, we're going to be doing $50 per application fee now, and that covers backgrounds, credit checks, eviction checks, all the things that we normally check for anyway. But AppFolio only charges us $20 to do that. So now we're able to make $30 in revenue per background. Previously, the systems we used charged the tenants, and we never charged any premium. Some of the ones we used were already $39 and $49 a month anyway. So it's not really a major cost difference to our prospective tenants, but it is a benefit to us as the property managers and owners to help collect some revenue, even off tenants who may not get placed. Now, I'm still going to do everything I can to pre-vet my tenants. I never want somebody paying application fees for properties that they're never going to qualify for. I know some people do that, and I don't agree with that at all. So we still do a pre-screener, which you can actually do through AppFolio as well. And it basically lets us know, are you telling us you're going to qualify for this or not? And if you're not, then we don't want you to pay $50. So, we're not really using it as like a money grab to try to get people to pay us $50 for an apartment they can't get. But sometimes we get 10 applications for one apartment. And now instead of the background company making the money off the other 9 and the difference, we're able to keep some of that revenue for ourselves.
So I have some properties that use both Buildium and then AppFolio. The AppFolio one that I've seen seemed rather basic, so I don't know. I feel like I've seen more online, so I feel like there are tiers, and my property manager used something like something simpler, like a simpler tier of AppFolio. Just curious, I mean, feel free to say no, but can you show what AppFolio looks like, or like a mock? And maybe this could even be a different call.
Yeah, I can't yet because we're not done with the onboarding. But yeah, I'm happy to share it as soon as I get into the system and familiar with it. Yeah, happy to do that on another call.
Okay.
And I don't know as far as the difference between the sophistication of Buildium and Appfolio. The main difference for me and why I chose Appfolio was because Buildium cannot do the bookkeeping the way Appfolio does, and it doesn't allow you to pull in multiple bank accounts. So the way my properties are set up, every single property has their own bank account, and I do that to keep all the books separate and all the accounting separate. And there's no way for us to do that with the way Buildium's set up. At least that was my understanding, because we did meet and demo with Buildium, and Tyler, my partner on this deal, he actually was already using Buildium for his portfolio. So it just it made sense to go after some of the things Appfolio could do that Buildium could not do.
And my Appfolio must definitely be a lower tier of some sort, because there's no financial reporting. It's the PM still prepares something separate and uploads it in there. So I know that there's more to it that I'm just not
Yeah.
seeing.
So you're seeing the owner's version of the portal, the property owners? Yeah. So the way Appfolio is set up is, my understanding, again, we're early in the stages here, but my understanding is there is a management system, an owner system, and a tenant system. And they're obviously, they all talk to each other, but they're all totally different systems. So whatever the user facing, dashboard is, is completely different than what like your property manager sees. So whatever your property manager sees is probably what I'm going to be dealing with.
And they probably have the choice to grant access.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's very customizable. There's a million widgets. There's a million dashboard options. So yeah, it's very customizable. And you could even one thing they were showing us is you can even customize it by property, or by if we ever get into third party management, you could even this client wants to see this client wants to see this. So you can actually have their back end experience be completely different than the guy down the street or whatever, right? So I thought it was pretty cool, and it's pretty encompassing, and it's the onboarding is a very detailed process. It takes almost 2 months to even onboard. Yeah. So anyway, so back to anyone who joined us late, feel free to, if you have questions, feel free to jump in. We got a smaller group, so don't feel like you got to hold your questions. I'll kind of recap some of the things you might have missed, but if you weren't aware of the topic tonight, we're going through the 40 unit I just purchased. So I mentioned this briefly earlier on the construction plan and budgeting. So this is a totally different renovation process than any deal I've done in the past. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I do really heavy value add burrs. So I do full guts. Usually we do all the mechanicals, we do all the electrical, we do everything from the walls in, typically on a rehab. This type of property is not like that, because as I mentioned, there's only about $100-150 of loss to lease and rent room between the current average rents and the top of market rents for these units. So it doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, it doesn't make any sense for us to go in there and spend $15,000-$20,000 on a renovation, because we are not going to get any more rent than if we go in and spend about $5,000 or $6,000, which is our plan. So we are turning these to D+, C- quality, which is appropriate for the neighborhood, and that is we're going to be at the very upper end of the average for the neighborhood, if that makes sense. So as I said, in the budgeting, our goal is about 6,000-7,000 max a door. We've found some mold and radiator issues on the first 3 apartments we're renovating. So we've had already a few extra $1,000 in cost that, we don't necessarily plan to do on every apartment. But, when you get into tearing open apartments, this is typically what happens. We did inherit an on-site maintenance person. So apartment number 1 is a studio apartment that the prior owner added. So this was actually originally a 39 unit apartment complex. And part of the renovation and adding the studio apartment, they basically converted one of the storage rooms in the basement of building number 3 and created a studio apartment. And they provide that rent for the, on-site maintenance guy. So we had kept him on part-time, and we plan on having him do just the ongoing maintenance calls. And he's basically paid a salary. He gets his apartment. He gets a weekly kind of stipend. It's a pretty low amount. And we expect him to work about 20 hours a week, plowing snow, cutting grass, maintaining the common areas, picking up litter, and then taking those handful of maintenance calls we expect to get each week. So the reason why we did a salary type of structure is because one week we might get one call, the next week we might get 10 calls, and we don't really have a way to control that. So unfortunately, we know we're going to be paying him quite a bit over what he works sometimes, and hoping that on average throughout a year it all works out to a fair salary. And of course, again, we're paying for his living expenses as well. So one cool thing about this, and actually one of the main contingencies for the seller to execute this sale, the seller is going to net just north of $1 million when we buy him out of this lease option. And he wants to reinvest that money with me and Tyler, my partner on this deal. So he does not really want to sell this. He didn't really want to sell this, but it makes sense for him to sell this if he can turn this into a $5 to $7 million deal. So part of the execution of this business plan is obviously raising the value of this property, like we've been discussing, but also to find a $5 to $7, $8 million deal, somewhere in that range, that we can go out and then buy as a 3-way joint venture partnership. And that will there. So the reason why all that's important is because it was part of the win-win structure of this lease option and the sale. It alleviated concerns of the owner for several reasons. He's able to retire and become passive. He's been actively self-managing this for the last 8 years. And no offense to him, he's a friend of mine, but he hasn't managed it well. He knows that. That's part of his motivation to sell. I've mentioned some of the things already throughout this call of why, this was not managed well. So we were able to take him out of an active management role, let him be completely passive, let him continue collecting income from the property without any active management or responsibility. And the back end of this, he's going to be able to take his $1 million and plus in equity he's created and go out and hopefully 2-3x his money in the long term. So that's the goal on the back end. But he also, part of this, in one of his hesitations in selling, because he had offers. He actually had offers that were higher than ours to buy this. He wanted to sell this to someone he trusted, that he knew was going to take care of his tenants. Because even though he didn't manage it well, he was heavily emotionally and personally involved in this. This was his full-time job. He's retired. He's in his 60s. This was his entire life, was managing this property. So you can imagine, if you put yourself in that lens, this is the only property he owned outside of his personal residence. If you can imagine putting yourself in his lens, he's not going to relinquish control of that unless he knows the people coming in are responsible, trustworthy, and they're going to provide even better experience for the tenants than he was. So that was an important factor for him. And like I said, that was actually a part of why he did not take higher offers on this property, that he could have sold it outright. He also didn't want to be on a very strict 1031 clock. So, again, at the back end of this, we want to take his equity and 1031 it into a larger deal. But executing this as a lease option allowed us to not start the 1031 timer. So while we don't get to start our depreciation schedule and the tax benefits and the principal pay down, we're missing 2 of the 4 kind of pillars of the real estate, wealth building thing. Even though we're missing 2 of those, it allows us the flexibility for the seller to start the 1031 once we find the deal. So again, those are all the reasons why we did those and structured it that way. All right, so that's everything I wanted to cover. What questions do you guys have? Anyone who came in late, feel free to jump in if you missed anything. Some of the high level stuff was, we bought it for $1.45 million. Our lease option monthly payment, our rent is $9,666 a month. The back end ARV we are projecting as very conservatively at 2.2 million. Could be as high as 2.6, 2.7 million if we can get above our target rents and cap rates compress back to where they were a couple years ago. So that's kind of high level numbers for anyone who missed it.
Hey Joe, so Lachlan, right? So I'm pretty familiar with it. It's just down the street from my duplex. Are you planning on doing Section 8 now?
No, not in particular. So I think we are going to continue leaning on the Chinese food company to fill vacancies as much as possible because those are corporate backed leases. So those are the most valuable leases we can get. That's a tens of millions of dollars, a year in revenue type of company. And it's walking distance. So that's our primary target for tenants. We're also going to continue marketing to the Spanish community. So, I would say again, probably 25% are probably illegal, most likely if I had to guess. But what I found, in the construction business and working closely with the Spanish communities, just like we are building, kind of that building that's going to be um, help gather all the Chinese employees in one building. We literally want to have a building that's dedicated to just Spanish speaking tenants because what's interesting with this property is that Fridays and Saturday nights when they're off of work, you literally have one corner of the parking lot is your Chinese tenants and they're all hanging out and drinking their beers and cooking and hanging out. And the other corner is the Spanish guys and they all keep to themselves. There's no issues. But you know, obviously when you speak a different language, it's really hard to create that sense of community, which is why we want to allow them to have their own, kind of communal areas, even within a property with multiple buildings, if that makes
That's
sense.
pretty smart. That's
Yeah.
that's huge. That's pretty smart.
Yeah. So, we're not trying to segregate them or anything like that, but we're trying to create an amenity, if you will, for the tenants where they're already there and they're already very mixed in. But it's actually one of the requests of the Chinese food companies is that they want their employees in one building. They want to basically be responsible for one building because they don't place deposits, but they cover capex and maintenance costs. So again, it's like a corporate double net type of lease. So it's a lot cleaner when they're all kind of operating out of one building. And that's obviously another motivation for us.
Hey Joe, did you guys find this deal off market?
Yeah, so this was an existing relationship with the seller. I've known him on and off for 8 years. We were never very close. But for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a former cop. He was a retired cop from California, and so when we met through real estate groups, that's actually how we met. Was through like the best ever meetup group in Deer Park. Um, One of the first conversations we had 8 years ago or whatever, he was literally buying this building, the one that we just bought. Um, and funny enough, he was telling me the story. He had owned a fourplex in Long Beach, California. That's where he was a cop. 1031 that, and his equity in that building was like 400,000, and that was what he used to buy the 40 units. So he literally bought this building for 10K a door 8 years ago. And if you can imagine how cheap it was, and back then that was like going rate, in a D class neighborhood. So it's pretty funny to see how much values have changed because people think we're getting a home run deal at 36K a door. We're literally paying 3.5 times what he paid 8 years ago. So, um, if you could imagine it being 3.5 times more valuable in 8 years, I think that we would all be shocked by that. Anyway, all that's to say that we just met through networking and meetups. We obviously had the cop thing in common, and that allowed us to keep a very, like, we were not close, right? So like people have asked me that, like, oh well, because here's what I don't want people to take from this. I don't want people to take from this, oh well, you and him were buddies, you guys are cops, blah blah blah. Like, that's not why this deal happened. The reason why this deal happened is because for 8 years we were able to keep fostering that relationship, building trust through networking, things like this, like what you guys are doing here tonight. And that created trust and respect from both sides. And then when the opportunity arose, that's what allowed us to put the deal together. So hopefully that makes sense, Kevin. But what I'm trying to get, the point I'm trying to make is that you could do this same thing with anybody you meet at any one of these networking events. Hopefully that makes sense. What other questions? All right, cool. Well, if there's nothing else, let's get into the goals. And Angela, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I think I told you guys a couple of weeks ago I made an off-market offer that got rejected as expected, right? I gave myself a little bit of room for negotiation. Had a conversation with the owner over the weekend, and I basically let him talk, right? But like you said, also trying to build some trust and that relationship with this person, not rushing into things. I had a chance to better understand what his concerns were, but the bottom line is that he finally gave me a number, because up until this point he had never given me a number, right? He's like, well, I don't know, kind of like make me an offer, blah blah blah, you know. Finally gave me a number, which is it's a little too high, but it's not terrible. So now I'm going back looking through my numbers, and it's and just try to work that out, and it's definitely getting me closer to the real number that I'm willing to pay, right? So still working on that, and then I'm trying to make another offer on a duplex just down the street here from my duplex. Um, so hopefully, I'm hoping that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm gonna be able to present them with an offer. They're like, well, yeah, we want to sell it. We're not ready for it. I'm finally seeing some activity at the property, which it has been vacant for a while. Seems like the owners showed up a couple of weeks ago and cleaned up the mailboxes. So I'm trying to understand what's going on. So hopefully that works out. You guys know I was trying to add 4 units this year. I added two. I really need to add a couple more. I have not really been that consistent with the MLS. Um, and I don't know, maybe I also got to start making offers, right? Maybe I mean, even if they are well below asking. So that's kind of what's going on with the number of units, and then still working on my reading, working on my duplex, painting it, doing most of the work myself. My tenant next door is officially moving out next month, or well, I guess this month now. So then I gotta go back and do some electrical upgrades. So you guys know I do most of that work myself. No rush. Probably that unit will be ready to hit the market sometime early next year, and I'm gonna try to rent it out to someone at PNG. And if that doesn't work out, then I'm gonna start, offering it to the open market. Other than
What
that,
do you think your market rent on that is?
I'm gonna go for 1,700. Yeah, I mean, again, 4 bedrooms. That one's got 2.5 bathrooms plus the detached garage. I'm gonna market it for 1,700, and that's kind of what I've seen around the area. Anything between 16 to 1,800 for a unit that size. And again, it's a side by side duplex. So I think I should be able to get that. Yeah.
Cool, man. Jared?
Yep. That's what's going on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. So as I mentioned last week, in my first meeting, I'm a new investor. So right now I'm still focused on putting my team together. I have made some strides in that area. Had a couple calls with some hard money lenders who I guess, which is the finance that I'm thinking I'm going to use. Still working on finding a property managers. I mean, I have some names, but I'm still trying to finalize that. So I'm still doing the vetting for those things, as well as contractors. I don't think you can ever have enough of those. And then additionally, I'm setting up my LLC for Cincinnati or for Ohio. I'm given that I'm out of state. I mean, I'm in California, so working on that as well. And then just spending my time educating myself, not just, not taking my foot off the pedal there either, because I mean, time is still time. So, I mean, in addition to doing what I'm doing, just making sure that I'm, I guess, improving myself as well.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming back, and yeah, keep down your path, and it'll work out for you.
Appreciate it.
All right, Ian.
Yeah, glad to see you guys again. Haven't been on in a minute, so don't want to talk too much, but I think just in terms of things that I'm doing, I could just put things in different buckets, right? You have acquisitions, we're looking at deals. I look at deals in different scales and different sizes. You're looking at, for me, stabilizing existing properties. I said problems because there are always problems as well that we're dealing with. And then there's some networking and personal growth, just the way many of you guys are going for that as well. So last time I was on this call, we were actually in Cincinnati because we hosted that trip, and I brought some investors. Joe was gracious enough to show us his 28 unit over in Clifton. And I was in Cincy for 2 weeks working on our properties. And then I went home for just 2 days and went off to Dallas on an apartment syndication field trip. Networked with a bunch of folks who do that kind of stuff as well, and brokers and things along those lines. Really, really great network and great people to be working with. I have been looking at some of the very large deals, to kind of partner with somebody very experienced to both help a little bit with the asset management, but also the capital raise on some of those types of properties. Separately, there are smaller deals. Probably not going to share the details yet, but LOI accepted on an 8 unit. So working on that as well. There's always kind of stuff popping up. Angela, I think you mentioned, you have to write offers. Some of them are very, very low, right? Like you have to write where the numbers make sense. And it's been a very tough time to do deals, but sometimes just going through that process or building that relationship and seeing what happens later. Like this one was one that we got rejected on like 6 months ago. So that's just kind of, the person eventually wanted it to sell it with another property, and that buyer backed out because they found stuff on other property, and we got this one. So that kind of stuff is going on, and all the while you're building relationships. So being able to partner with the right people that can allow you to execute is great. And so that's something. Something actually similar to what you did, but probably not close to the same. But I think doing a lease option, I was trying to do some type of creative deal where I was buying into an LLC on a property, that buying less than 50%, but having an exit date within 3 years when their fixed rate debt ended, because I wanted to stabilize the property and then sell it and be out of it. But considering our relationship with that seller wasn't the same, we just kind of didn't move on it. But she wanted a much higher price, and then eventually we came to something much lower, but I didn't fully feel comfortable doing that kind of deal at the time. Yeah, other than that, just kind of networking, stabilizing properties. There's a property that we're rewiring right now, so dealing with the IBI and getting that inspection there, dealing with some tenant issues, but having mostly stabilized the portfolio. That's why I like multifamily, because you have an issue on one unit, you have the rest of them to kind of even things out. So yeah, those are the main things I'm working on.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned that I for anyone who doesn't know, I just started hosting on the Best Ever podcast, and I've had a chance to talk to some high level investors. And one thing I'm literally every call I'm hearing the same thing from these guys and gals I'm talking to. It's like the offers they're making, you're either going to get price or terms. Like those are the two. Like the seller's only going to get one of those two. So you as a buyer should have the leverage to get one or both of those things, because the market we're in, it's difficult for everybody, but sellers, if they want their price, if they want a full market value price that they would have got a year or two ago, then they're going to have to give you terms that make sense. And so even looking at the deal we talked about tonight, it's like he didn't get quite full market value, but he got the price he wanted. But we set it up in a way where the terms are favorable for everybody. So again, that's just an example of like, if you're out here making offers, I don't care if it's a single family duplex, 100 units, whatever, that should be part of your pitch, whether it's direct to seller or through a broker or an agent or whatever. You should be structuring these offers in a way where it's like, hey, I'll give you 100% of the market value, but you're going to give me a 5% interest rate for 10 years on a 10-year balloon or whatever, right? So now you have a lot of time to raise the value, pay down the loan, whatever, right? So there's a million ways to do it, but my point I'm making is those are the ways I'm seeing deals done at every size, is through creativity and where sellers and buyers are both making compromises. All right, Kevin.
I haven't been on in a while, but not much has really changed with me, unfortunately. I have had a few. I don't know if you guys remember. I did get my license. I've had 2 sales so far with that. So I feel like I kind of lost my way a little bit, and really once I got my license, really focusing on retail sales and retail clients. And I said I wouldn't do it, and of course I started running around town chasing buyers, doing showings, them ghosting you, things like that. And I feel like it distracted me and I lost my way as far as, hey, I got my license because I'm an investor first. So on one end, that's good because I'm trying to establish that side as a retail realtor so that I can then just turn all those commissions into cash for investments. So I have to do both, but just trying to find that balance between a new agent and also keeping my investor hat on. So now that things are kind of slowing down in the fall, I am still working with a few, retail clients as an agent, but I'm also trying to just start back calling brokers. I did take a meeting with one maybe a week ago or so of a guy that's local here in Columbus, and he's doing a lot of volume as a apartment broker. But just just trying to get back refocused, I would say, as an investor too. So that would be my biggest thing, I would say, right now.
Are you working a W-2 job as well?
Yeah, I'm a fire medic.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah. So every third day I go into the firehouse, and then my 2 days off is spent generally doing that.
Here would be my advice. This is what I did about 6-7 years ago as a new agent. Try to focus on one niche, and that can be anything you want it to be. So that could be just working with firemen. That could be a specific neighborhood. That could be just selling duplexes. I don't care what it is. Well, the reason why I say that is because if you get absolute control and dominance of whatever that niche is, that will allow you to grow from there with a stable base of business. So for me, I got really, really good at selling 2 to 4 unit rental properties. So my first few years in business, that's all I really worked on. It's all I marketed to. That, like, I went to these network groups like this. I went to the local meetup groups. I shook hands with every single person I could get in front of. And I told them, hey, I'm a small multifamily investor. I'm an agent. I sell small multifamily. If you're interested in that, I'd love to chat with you. And that's also like the widest demographic. Most of the people that have came through this group and the other groups I'm a part of start with either single or small multifamily rentals. And that's going to allow you to get a bigger client pool. So I don't care if you do that. It could be firemen, it could be medics, it could be, postmen. I don't care what it is. But what I'm saying is, like, really latch on to one segment or subsegment of the market, especially right now while we have this really slow time in real estate, where rates suck, sellers don't want to sell, buyers don't want to buy. It's a really stagnant market for everybody. Now's the time to try to build up your brand. And it can just be Facebook, Snapchat, whatever social media you're on, but build it in a way where when people think of that, they think of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That'd be my advice as a new agent. If I had to start over, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Cool. I appreciate you coming back, man. I hope you can keep joining us and keep learning, and hopefully you'll pull the trigger on your first deal here soon.
Yeah, that's the number one goal will be I am looking to aggressively close my first multifamily deal. And I wouldn't say I came close, but we submitted LOIs twice and just didn't get a response back from the broker. They obviously accepted another deal, but that's been a while ago, and I kind of just moved away from it. I didn't stay persistent, and keep following up and keep the same thing going. So I got to get back onto that, I would say.
Are you house hacking right now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good.
So that's been going good. And just having a long-term tenant there that's in place. I mean, we signed like a 15-month lease, so very, very stable, and it's going good. There's been zero issues. So
Are you going to house hack your next deal?
no, she's done with all that. So we're done house hacking. The next one is going to be just single family forever home, and I'll have to do my investing on the side. But yeah,
Okay.
other stuff.
Yeah, house hacking is definitely the best way to get into it. I
Yeah.
do that as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of, you said you submitted 2 LOIs. I've personally found that to be the best time to build a relationship with a broker and let them know that you're serious. If it's all in the communication, it's not just the LOI submitting a professional looking one, but like rationalizing why you're the ideal buyer for the property, laying out your reasoning so that they know that you're competent. There's like a certain cadence to that conversation and follow-up that usually helps, maybe not the first conversation, but down the road, they're like, okay, like I should pay more attention to this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
How what is this? Are you in several commercial deals already yourself, Christian?
yeah, by the way, I go by Ian. Legal
Gotcha.
name, and I go by the last 3 letters. Wouldn't expect you to know, but yeah. So I'm doing a lot of the smaller stuff. 4 to 8 units so far. We've been very close. I think on the last call I mentioned there were actually 2 properties that were in that 20 unit range, and I guess to close the loop on that, one of those properties, we were the top person, and the seller just changed their mind on selling it. And then the other one was old, and they accepted an offer from somebody who waived contingencies, which I think is a little crazy. But those, that's why we have to stay disciplined with what we're writing. But I am looking at larger stuff as of right now. Deals are tough, so I've been submitting a lot of LOIs, and they haven't led to much, right? It led to a few of these smaller things, but as long as you kind of keep that relationship going, it's good. And then I think also partnering with certain people. I've had situations where 2 of the top 3 offers are me and then somebody else, and then we have strong relationships, so we were open to partnering together. And then the broker's like, oh, these 2 strong profile buyers are willing to partner together to get this deal done. So they I think we have a strong reputation with them. So that kind of stuff happens as well. So not just networking and building those connections with the brokers, but also with other investors. But again, everyone has different appetites for partnerships and things like that, which is a whole different conversation.
Yeah, and one piece of advice that JD Belcar, who just was on the podcast, and he spoke to us at our last call. If you haven't checked it out, you can check both of those out. But he gave a piece of advice that I wrote down. It was really good. And he said when he gets deals presented to him by brokers, or like in your case, let's say you're looking for a single or small multifamily investment, if you're talking to a listing agent that has that deal, if you make an offer, follow up, even if you don't get it, follow up with them and find out what it was about the other offer. If they, whatever they can disclose, find out what it was that separated their offer from your offer. Because sometimes as buyers, we're just not being realistic, because we can sit here and say a property's worth whatever we want to say it's worth till we're blue in the face. But if there's 100 other people or 10 other people or even one other person out there that says it's worth 5, 10, 20% more, or the terms are better, or the contingencies are better, whatever it is that's getting the deals done, as buyers, we have to adjust our expectations and be realistic in the market. Because I know so many people that called me 7, 8 years ago saying they were going to buy a rental property that still haven't bought it. And you could come up with every excuse in the book and I'm not saying you're doing this. I'm just saying that these are the things to look out for as a new investor. Like, get the feedback, ask the questions, and if you have an agent that you can make a relationship with, I know you're representing yourself, and that's great. But if you make relationships with the agents that control the type of market you want to get into, then constantly get feedback and give feedback on those listings. If you get a deal that doesn't make sense for you, give feedback. And that was Jay's advice that I thought was really good and something I haven't done well. So I would definitely recommend that as well. All right, Brian.
Yeah, hey everyone. Yeah, so I'm pretty exhausted. So I don't know about you, Joe, but I think there's a 4 month regression or something like that. So baby's up every 2 to 3 hours, and wife's going back to work next week. So I'm trying to get her caught up on sleep. So I'm in the mix on that. So I miss sleeping full nights. So but still working through it. So yeah, but otherwise still focused on the Norwood mixed use. I think, what was it, Friday we're supposed to get anticipating response back from the city.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll get those permits approved, and we can continue the residential build out. Yeah, in parallel, I guess I need to step it up and try to get those commercial tenants or those commercial spaces leased up. So DJ and we've tried, done some posts on social media, and I put an ad on Craigslist and put some signs up in the windows, and we've gotten some inquiries, but no one's serious. So and just my W-2's been kicking my ass right now. So just trying, between the baby and the job, it's not a whole lot of time left over, but I'm talking to DJ as much as possible. I think, between the two of us, I want to start doing other stuff, like maybe paid Facebook ads, or just start calling individual businesses who we think could use a second location. So trying to devote some time and effort to doing stuff like that.
Have you guys tried getting in any of the business groups, restaurant groups, like things like that may, like, I'm assuming there's private Facebook groups that cater to all of those types of substrata of groups. Have you guys tried penetrating any of those to put the marketing out there?
Yeah, Osh has given us some specific examples, like there's
Okay.
some restaurant forum or something like that that he said is useful. So I know DJ has made a post there and gotten some questions from that source. And
Okay.
yeah, we joined like Norwood businesses and stuff like that. We've joined those Facebook groups. So yeah, we've done a little bit here and there for those targeted groups.
Yeah, no, and it's tough, like I said, I've done a little bit of commercial leasing, and it's always slow. And obviously, we're not in the best economy right now. So it's probably less people trying to start new businesses or expand businesses than there were a few years ago. So yeah, it's tough, but I'm hoping you guys will find some good tenants soon on those.
Yep, hopefully soon.
Cool, guys. Well, yeah, I know you're tired and busy with the baby, Brian. I appreciate you joining us. And
Yeah.
cool. Is our next call is on the 15th. We'll have another guest speaker, so look out for the details on that coming out. Any other final thoughts, questions?
Joe, I'll be down in Cincinnati next week.
Okay.
If any of the guys are available or something, or if you are, if we can just, I don't know, meet up. And nothing too long, since it's spur of the moment, but maybe just meet up.
Oh yeah, shoot me a message. Yeah, we can
Okay.
try to get coffee or something. Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, it'll be the end of the week. We'll be there Thursday to Saturday
next week.
So
Okay.
I'll shoot you a message, and we'll try and get something on the books.
Sounds good. Yeah. As far as my goals, I almost forgot. I mean, yeah, I don't have anything major change since last 2 weeks ago. Obviously closed on the 40 units, started the renovations on those 3 apartments I mentioned. 28 units doing well. We got a few more apartments at various phases of construction on that one. Finished and leased out a couple. Got a couple more we're working on. We did raise rents on the existing inherited tenants, and I think we had 2 tell us they were leaving out of 14 or whatever was left of the original tenants. So not a whole lot of movement there, which is fine. And then I think we have 2 non-paying right now that we're probably gonna have to evict. So but yeah, other than that, everything's kind of moving along as planned. And again, see you guys on the 15th. We'll have a speaker lined up. I appreciate you guys joining us, and keep on working on your goals.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone. Great seeing you all.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
See you.